Pilates isn't being disrupted by AI, it's being disrupted by studio owners. If we haven't met before, my name's Anita Horry. I'm second generation Pilates teacher trainer and business coach, and I mentor both teachers and studio owners on building careers and studios that last. And I want to start today with something that came up at the business panel at the Pilates Journal Expo that I attended as a speaker last month in Huntington Beach in California. So everybody was talking about AI. And I get it, but I honestly think that the bigger disruption in our industry isn't AI, it's ownership. Because when ownership changes, decisions change. And when decisions change, standards get tested. So let me break this down simply. Most studios today fall into one of four ownership types. So there's the educator owner, there's the emerging operator owner, there's the franchise or multi-site operator, and then there's this investor-backed growth owner. Now, the first is the educator owner. So the educator owner is a teacher who runs the studio and they spot depth because they've lived it. They've done it before. They know what it takes to teach Pilates. The second is an emerging owner. So they're maybe newer to Pilates. Maybe they've taught a little. Maybe they haven't taught at all, but they're building a studio and learning fast as they go along. The third one is where there's a franchise or a multi-site option. And even if the owner once taught, once you're running multiple sites, you're not teaching anymore and you're not assessing teaching every day. So you're basically just running the systems. And the fourth one is where it's investor-backed growth. So there's capital comes in, then the KPIs come in, and the machine becomes more about scaling, standardizing, and expansion. Now, what is the key point here? Here is what I really want you to hear. There's only one of these four types that is guaranteed to be able to assess teaching depth directly, and that is the owner educator. The other three have to build systems or they're hiring blindly and they're just going to have a very messy system. And just so that you know, I'm not saying this just based on a vibe. You know, I've done some research and I see that IBIS World shows that the Pilates and yoga studio industry in the US is very fragmented. There's no single company that dominates the market. So it's still mostly independent studios. Now, franchises are scaling very, very quickly. And Club Pilates specifically publicly talks about over 1,000 locations globally now. And that's not just Pilates. So the boutique fitness as a whole has a franchise expansion and it is just booming. And then you've got private equity stepping into Pilates style concepts. Reuters covered L. Catterton buying into Solidcore at a serious valuation with expansion plans. So the point isn't chains are evil. The point is ownership models are changing and that changes what gets prioritized in each business. Now here's the uncomfortable truth in all this. When someone owns a studio but they can't really assess teaching depth, and that is the skill of the teachers that they're hiring, they're only hiring for what they can actually assess. And what can they assess? They could assess confidence, the way that the person is polished, the personality, the energy of the teacher, their aesthetics. You know, these are superficial. They would maybe assess the followers or the way that they're delivering a class, but they're not really assessing how the teachers judge the session. So do you know what to do, for example, when the client's shoulder is not anchored into the back? Or does the teacher know how to regress a session, how to regress an exercise? How about teaching pregnancy safely? Do they understand the sequencing? Or are they just repeating a flow that they've learned? Then there's obviously the speed of learning. Scaling needs teachers quickly. So the chains need teachers quickly. So the timetables are filling. The churning needs managing. The depth is very, very slow and optics are very fast. What do I mean? This is is where AI becomes really dangerous. It's not going to replace teachers. It's going to manufacture credibility fast. Here is what's important. In the AI era, the most dangerous teacher is the one who looks credible at speed. So, if you are a teacher, what should you be doing? You're in one of the three lanes as a teacher. You're either employed, you're either independent, or you're hybrid. So one question for you, for example, if you are employed, one question you should be asking is, who in the studio has the authority to assess teaching quality and say no to an unsafe teacher? And if no one can really answer that clearly, that's not a standards-based studio. That is literally a vibes-based studio. That's just, let's see how we go. So if nobody can name the standards owner, the standards in that studio do not exist. Now, if you are an independent teacher, ask yourself this question. If you stopped posting or hustling for 2 weeks, would your business still generate bookings? Would you still get the same clientele? Now, if the answer is no, then you don't really need more content. You need a system, you need more referrals, you need rebooking, you need retention, and the proper client pathway. Now, if you have a hybrid situation, is your schedule building your brand or is it building somebody else's brand? Are you working too many hours for somebody else? Because remember, hybrid without boundaries is going to turn burnout. It's going to turn into that burnout with somebody else's logo on it. Now, if you are a studio owner, what do you need to look for? Especially if you are a new teacher. So some of you might be really good operators and you're building something really beautiful and you're not really pretending to be master teachers. But let me say this very, very clearly. You do not have to be the best teacher in town to run the best studio in town. But you do need to be honest with yourself about what you can assess. And if you can't assess teaching depth, you can't assess teaching quality, your standards need to live in your systems. Now, there are 3 non-negotiables for you as a studio owner. First of all, audition critical thinking, not performance. You should be auditioning people who know what to do in case something goes wrong, and you can't be auditioning rehearsed flow. You need to be interrupting your teachers and literally just saying to them, just give me a regression right now. And this client has wrist pain, for example. How can you change this exercise? Or this client is pregnant and what can you be avoiding? And tell me why you've chosen this exercise for this particular person. So performance can look so amazing, but critical thinking is going to show up under pressure. The next thing you should be doing is give mentored onboarding. So stop throwing people straight into the timetable. Hired is not going to be the same as being cleared. They should have observation hours. They should have feedback logs from you, and you should give them that time to prepare themselves before they go out there in the real world. And then number 3, you need standards as an owner, as a real person with authority. You need to have someone who can veto a hire. You should have someone who can pull somebody in for training, and you can have someone who audits teachers' quality and owns continuing education. That's important for your business. So, a standards owner without authority is not going to create sustainable business. So, in the 3 of the 4 models now in common in Pilates, the owner can't personally guarantee teaching depth. So the guarantee has to live within the system. What do I mean here? If you are an owner, here's your opportunity to have a unique selling point. Your unique selling point is not going to be your reformers, not your lighting, not your vibe, not the way that your studio looks. The USP is going to be your standard. If it is real, the standards of quality are going to be exploding within your studio. Every new teacher should be mentored before they are released into the real world. You should be auditing teaching quality, and you should be claiming that you are teaching the Pilates method. And then competitors can buy a ton of equipment and say they're teaching Pilates, but they're not going to be able to copy the standards that you currently have in your studio. I'm a teacher trainer. I know what it takes to have really good quality teachers, and I also run businesses myself. I have owned a number of Pilates businesses. Whether you're a teacher, whether you have a hybrid model or you're employed, or whether you are a studio owner, you know that you want to protect the Pilates teacher standards. And having unique selling points in your area, you're going to be creating that credibility. And you're going to create the longevity that your business needs. So if you want my eyes on your situation, whether you're a teacher or a studio owner, book a discovery call. We look at what ownership model you're in, whether your standard is leaking, and what needs to be built so that your work has longevity. The link is in the description below. And remember, AI isn't the disruption, ownership is. And the studios and teachers who win won't be the ones that look credible fast. They'll be the ones who can prove that standards are real in real life situations, that they can look out for their clients, that they can create transformations. And in their values, they have the care and the long-term facilitation of client satisfaction and retention. That's what's going to make it such an amazing differentiator for your business. So if you are interested to work with me, click on the link below. We'll just have an easy conversation about where you're at and how I can help you. And if I know I can't help you, then I'm going to make sure that I refer you to somebody who would. If you like the video, hit the like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring the bell so that you get notified every time I upload a video online. Until my next video, goodbye for now.